Hello, 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 hello. Welcome to Beyond Hegemony, previously Hegemony Revealed. I'm here with my fabulous co-host Garry Turner. Sahana is still on taking her break and for centering and self-care. And so Garry and I have been talking a little bit off camera, and he brought up something that I really want to dive into as far as mental health. This is how we're segueing. We're going to do two episodes, kind of re-envisioning and talking about how what it is now, and then re-envisioning hegemony in the future. Um, and he brought up a really good example off camera. So share, can you share that, Garry?
Yeah, sure. And thanks for taking us off again today, kicking us off again today, Trina. And hey, everyone who's watching live or listens back on the podcast, which Trina is kindly curating for us on Beyond Hegemony. So, yeah, as for those that may have seen me before, may not, I work still within the chemicals industry. So, directly linked in the currently hegemonic Western supply chain. So, I actually do supply raw materials that go into manufacturing pharmaceuticals, agrochemicals, a lot of the things that most people in the West still don't see as being hegemonic, seeing being systemically oppressive and unjust. And the example that I've literally just come live out of is an example where we in the West, when things don't go our way, the conditioned mind of us in the West, the colonized mind, takes us to we are the ones that deserve to be right. My way of thinking is the right way of thinking. What I need is the only thing that matters in this moment. That very hyper individualistic, fear based response to not getting our own way. And that's come up very powerfully in literally the last 30 minutes. And again, I see the humanity, Trina, in the other person. I see the pressure that they're under in that moment, both within and outside of themselves. But then I say, hey, that's hegemony manifesting itself. What does beyond hegemony, how else could that person have reacted in a way that is just and beyond hegemony? And maybe I'll hand it back to you as to maybe with some of your work, Trina, what does that example I just shared, how different can that be? Yeah, when
Mm,
we come from a beyond hegemony mindset and way of being.
well, first of all, I applaud you for acknowledging the person's humanity and probably just knowing that whatever he or she is going through is a fear-based response of like, oh no, I'm going to be held responsible for that, and you're not going to screw me over type of deal. Um, I watched I think it may have been a TikTok video, and it was so profound how hegemony has a very Western hegemony. Let me be specific because there are different hegemonies throughout the world, but the West in particular is the most dominant. And so there was a person talking about how other countries hate working with the United States. And I'm going to roll the UK into that because, like I say, we're kissing cousins. Um, and the reason being is that most cultures, starting with the native to everywhere else in the world, will build relationships based on, mutual respect, integrity, and will sometimes take a blow to their income as long as they know that there's a relationship being built and you'll come back. And so a lot of countries hate dealing with the United States and the UK because their way of being and operating is extremely narcissistic, and I'm going to get you before you get me mentality. And so that kind of closes the door for building any type of true integrity, authenticity, and relationship with people who are, that's their base level, that's their culture. And their culture is like, okay, well, okay, we're going to give you this really low price right now. And in the future, uh, you'll do this. And a lot of times, and I've dealt with this with business myself, um, a lot of times that doesn't yield the result or the desired outcome as that other cultural ideology wants, because it's like it one hit and quit, and then you'll never see that particular business again, that particular person again. So they just ran away. It's kind of like how Columbus said, wow, these people are so kind and giving, and they're going to be easy to conquer. And so that colonial hegemonic mindset, because they're one and the same, tends to not build bridges, but basically blow them up. Okay. And do it with not only um, violence, but bitterness, like fear and intimidation. You know what I mean? And so
Mm-hmm.
I had mentioned that this person is just like straight ahead to legal. And you were hoping for a conversation, a solution, um, moving forward. Some type of let's let me see if I can solve this problem in a relationship building way, you know. But the West has a hard time with that.
Yeah, and you know what I would add to that? Thank you for sharing. And I think this is again post hegemony, right? Looking beyond where we are.
Mm-hmm.
Accountability is such an important part of relationship. To
Mm-hmm.
be in relation, and you've helped me with that. Yeah, we've helped one another, me, you, and Sahana. Yeah, if any one of us feels that we're falling out of a just relationship, we feel comfortable enough, and we're equally accountable to one another enough, even as part of this show, to say,
Mm-hmm.
"Hey, this doesn't feel right to me," or
Mm-hmm.
actually, this is going in the wrong direction for me as part of this collaboration. Something's not quite right, and then it's on me, or it's on you, or it's on Shahana in that group to say, "Okay, I acknowledge that. Let me think about that. Let me reflect. Let me be accountable." Whereas what's
Mm-hmm.
happening in that example I shared earlier that we're exploring, there's no discussion. There's no relationship. There's no desire to co-create something better as a result of that joint accountability. And I think this is really, for me, Trina, beyond hegemony is collectivism. It
Mm-hmm.
is reimagining. It is pluriversality, as Shahana speaks beautifully about. Yeah, it's beyond the one world. It's not all about just profit and growth and me over you. And this is a lot of unlearning, right? A lot of unlearning that we've got to do.
Right. A lot of survival of the fittest type of cutthroat. If you don't do what I need you to do type of mentality that makes life really uncomfortable for absolutely no reason. I just recently wrote an article about how hegemony, we could end capitalism, the root of this situation, almost immediately with building relationships through bartering again and having a more egalitarian mindset. That's my post hegemonic vision,
Mm.
that we consume less and barter more and take this kind of colonialistic capitalistic piece out that only benefits a few, and get people back. This is part of the reason why in the United States that they are passing ridiculous bills to criminalize people to that boycott Israel. As you can see, my background is ceasefire now. I'm still actively trying to advocate and work with people who are using their voices for collectivism, which you just said, because we are collectively feeling the impact of what's happening to people in the Congo, in Palestine, in different parts even of China. Um, the list is pretty long. And so, what you said, you know, imagine if this person, you said what you said, I can't get this right now for reasons ABC. What if that person said, hmm, is this something out of Gary's control? Is this out of the person's chain of command control? Is this an environmental issue? You know, because you can't get blood from a tourniquet. You can't, what is it? You can't get blood from a stone,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes when it's not there, it's not there. So how do we pivot? How do we pivot? Now, it could be as simple as this person, if he's a good person or she's a good business person, shouldn't have their hand in one pot in this type of industry that they do. So I'm guaranteed they do not. But if not, they could work with you and say, well, are you partnered? Like if we were partnered with other companies instead of competition with other companies, we could just give them a call and say, hey, we ran out of this. What do you need that I can trade you this for that?
This is it's so rich, Trina. It's so rich, and there's so many layers. I'd love. It's so layered because again, what did you just said so beautifully earlier? The capitalist system, and so many people, and I didn't see it till a few years ago. It's
Mm-hmm.
a system based on fear and survival,
Mm-hmm.
but manufactured, literally and metaphorically, survival.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
because actually, I've got a ridiculous amount of privilege. This white guy sitting in near London with a really nice
Mm-hmm.
garden, a house. Yeah, life's good. Can't complain. Ridiculous amount of privilege. But I am
Right.
still trapped in the same system as the person on the street, as the person with $1 billion each year. And
That's
until
right.
people start to see, actually, we are collectively trapped in a system that is literally does not love us, is actually actively trying to kill us all from the inside out, spiritually. You go, oh my God, what? You mean I should be in relation with the billionaire and the guy and the girl on the street? Well, yeah, because this is where we are one, not with different
Yeah.
levels of privilege, but we
Right.
are equally human,
Right.
and different levels of privilege, but we are genuinely equally human, right? And it's like, when did we stop valuing one another and our humanity, such as what's happening in Gaza at the moment and in West Papua and in Congo? What's gone on with that systemic colonization of the mind that
Mm-hmm.
sees some as other, as some as valuable, And how do we imagine
Yeah.
beyond that, Trina? How do we imagine beyond that? How do we be beyond that?
Well, to be beyond that is to understand, not just understand, understand, to know who you are, know your, be more emotionally intelligent, to understand not just, I affect everything. My energy affects everything. So you may not jive with a particular person. This is a part of the divide and conquer tactic used by colonialism and hegemony. These imaginary things. I think it has a lot to do with the belief systems that have been perpetuated throughout time, that other people, for really ridiculous and imaginary reasons. And if more people could be asking the questions, which a lot of people are right now, I'm super excited to hear so many people come to this kind of awakening that, hey, it's been an okey doke. Race is not a thing. Um, Religion is kind of just a tool. Like, that's my own personal business. Is it guiding? Is it manifesting me the type of life that I want? Those are personal conversations. Why is everybody up in my business, right? Well, they understand. Hegemony understands that in order to get its needs met, it has to narcissistically manipulate people into boxes. So when an individual breaks out of their box and says, I'm beyond this, I'm enough just as I am, but I'm beyond this reality that's being created um, due to scarcity, due to fear, due to violence. I think one of the things that really, bugs hegemony is that all the people it oppresses seem to still be here. Smaller numbers, but they're still here. And guess what? We still rise above. They've been trying to get rid of Palestinians for almost 100 years now. They're still there. And if anything, one of the biggest mistakes that it keeps making is it forgets that when you are fluid as a human being, people might try to squeeze you, but you're going to slip through their fingers. Okay? There's always gaps. So, yeah, this is, I see a shift in ideology. I see a shift in belief systems. Some people, like there's some Christian fanatics that are like, they're trying to make us give up God. Saw a video about it. It was total lie. I researched everything that I go, that doesn't make any sense. Especially since hegemony has propped itself up as God throughout time. So, what would be the benefit of all that work and then to completely destroy that paradigm? So, what I think is actually happening is that people who are in that deeply embedded in those belief systems are seeing that this hasn't really been benefiting me, has it?
We're missing you, Sahana.
Yeah.
I'm grateful, but I'm grateful to you, Trina, and for those watching and listening back. We're looking forward to inviting people in. Let's remind people as well. We know there's some interest from people to come and explore.
Yeah.
We really do want to widen the circle for those that are open and willing and curious to expand it with us, right, Trina? We're ready for that.
We've been ready for that. I just, as with most kind of like lives and podcasts and stuff, it takes a minute to build momentum. I mean, I took a 6 month break from EQ above IQ, and during that 6 month break, I have been working on that podcast for almost 3 years. But during the break, because it had grown slowly, I was getting a lot of requests for sponsorship and things like that. And I was like, well, maybe I should get back on that, So sometimes it takes a moment for people to appreciate your content and to see who you are. Are you just another person looking for a platform to stand on a soapbox? Or are you really walking the talk? And I think that Garry, myself, and Sahana are really walking the talk in very different ways, but very important ways. And we wouldn't have built this collaboration if we didn't want other people to be a part of the conversation. So I really encourage people who are watching this replay, come on, talk, tell us what you're doing to get beyond hegemony, or even challenging. I know there are a lot of people who have a hard time imagining beyond hegemony. And I'd love to have a conversation with people like that as well, because there's no judgment, and most ideologies come from a place of trauma.
I love that invitation. Thank you, Trina. Mm-hmm. I'd love also to pop back, because something that popped up to me as you shared that beautiful, it takes time, it takes a minute. What a beautiful phrase, delivered with your amazing energy. It's also countercultural, right? Because one of the supremacy culture patterns that we've been conditioned with in the mind and body is urgency. Mm-hmm. Got to do it now. Got to grow now. Got to get bigger now. It's got to happen now. Yeah, that whole urgency, that grab for attention by every social media platform, that's all about doing something now, right? And actually, what you described so beautifully is no, it's not about just now. It's actually about emergence. It's unfolding. It's co-creation. It's trusting ourselves and one another somehow.
Right. It's nothing worth. They always say what nothing worth having happens immediately. I always call a marination period. You need to let things marinate and kinks work out, and downloads to come. I often use the word download because we have these little computers going on, and not all the software that we're being fed is to our benefit. So, we get viruses, both literally and figuratively. So sometimes it needs to take time. Like, I was one of those people when the vaccine came out in like a millisecond. I was like, no, that doesn't feel right. This is supposed to be researched, scientifically proven, and blah, blah, blah. Eh, This seems a little bit out of order. So, yeah.
I just love like just the obviousness, Trina, for you, like, and I think that's part of the Beyond Hegemony for me as well. And again, I'm still very much in the weeds, right, of this.
Hmm.
Is that it's amazing how things demist, that misty mirror that you thought had always looked like that for all of your life because it's been conditioned to be that way. It
Hmm.
suddenly starts demisting, and
Hmm.
suddenly like the perspective just becomes this amazing 180, 270, 360 view, and not
Hmm.
this sort of 10-degree view that we've been conditioned with, right? And I think that's something I want to invite my, remind myself of, but invite the listeners and watchers. Is there so much more of us from the inside out that we haven't even experienced yet?
So much. So much. I think that as far as a mind body spirit connection, a lot of people don't realize so much of what we consume is toxic, and it creates one distraction after another distraction. If it's not what you consume as food, if you're consuming unhealthy things which are sprayed with toxins, and you all of a sudden get sick, and you get this feeling, you get your intuition comes up and says, I think it's from this. They'll immediately distract you with something else. Go to the doctor and they'll tell you something else, and they'll tell you something else. And so that's why I say understand. You need to pay attention to your body, pay attention to how it moves, what's the difference, what you eat versus this day versus another day. I mean, I've gotten very attuned to my health lately. Um, and that attunement is connected to my spiritual that I notice, because when I'm attuned, I'm talking to my inner self. I'm talking to the all powerful being that resides within me. That is telling me, yep, that's what it is. And I'm not talking about, I'll often tease my Christian friends. Did the Lord speak to you today? And they laugh, and I said, or was it just you? You know, And when you're distracted with all these external stuff, you forget that you are dialoguing with you. Your id is dialoguing with you. Which reminds me of a really great exercise, because a lot of my clients tell me, I have no idea what you're talking about. So it's a really great exercise that I encourage everybody to do, which is sit in silence for a moment and then ask yourself, what will be my next spontaneous thought? Okay. And often, I won't do the whole thing here, but often when we ask ourselves that question, nothing comes. And all of a sudden you're sitting there like, um, there's nothing coming. And that's the example of the supreme control that you have over your thoughts. It is that moment when you recognize that there's no thought, that you have control over your thoughts. That's how powerful you are. It's just that we're completely distracted all the time. and we think that there's something else controlling us.
It's really making me laugh, Trina, because I was literally doing the exercise as you did it. And I was
I
like,
know.
where's that thought gone? Hey, come on, who are you? Where are you? Great
Yeah.
example. Great
Yeah,
example.
because we get all these constant thoughts throughout the day. And I can't remember the number, but you get constant random thoughts throughout the day, right? And and your brain is your mind is deciding what's important, what's not important, you know. But who's in charge? You are. You are in charge. And so many times people don't realize that they're in charge, you know? Yeah.
It's beautiful. I was wondering, with our last sort of several minutes, Trina,
Mm-hmm.
we had a bit of fun, pop fun, a bit of laughter as we wrap up our second exploration around mindset, health of mind, etc.,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
around the British Museum and how the mindset that pervades or sits behind the UK government's belief that they are doing foreign countries a favour by lending said countries' antiquities back to them. And I wonder what's going on with the mindset there.
Psychopathy. I can tell you one thing, that the European mind has never had an issue feeling entitled and above everyone else. And I really sometimes I go, where do I get some of that? That is some major either that's some major self love or that's some major disassociation. And I often feel that we all collectively live in this disassociated state where we're trying to um, hide the truth of how we really feel about ourselves through grandiose and narcissistic behavior. And so when I hear that, all I hear is narcissistic behavior. And instead of going, wow, that was really messed up, we probably shouldn't have done that. And I've grown. And so I'm going to take accountability for our thievery, butchery, and everything else that we've done. And we're going to turn around and do the right thing. And we're going to try to build relationship with these countries and mea culpa, whatever we got to do to prove that we have changed, that's what we'll do. But the problem is that they haven't changed. Through these hundreds and thousands of years, they have not changed because there's such a deep avoidance of the trauma that came out of Europe. The brutality, the when you study the history, it's just like, wow, you know. There were rare times of peace, and I won't pretend that I'm not surprised that usually the most peaceful times were during the time of the Moors, in that development of Europe and sanitary systems and education and cathedrals and all that stuff. Many times, I mean, there's a stunning documentary that I watched the other day, um, where it showed the whitewashing of uh, brown and black royalty in the UK, in Europe, not just the UK, but all over, where there were these people who came in from Africa, helped build and seed civilization all over Europe, but were immediately erased. But you can find them throughout, and you can even read about them. I posted swarthy, means of dark or black complexion. And it was King George II that was described as swarthy. Yet, if you see a picture of him, he's pale as the driven snow. So Yeah, we got a lot of correction to do. A lot of correction. I'm not sure if that was connected to the original
Yeah.
thought, but I'm
For,
just.
for sure it is. And I think what's really beautiful, actually, intuitively, we've weaved back across this accountability link as well,
Hmm.
which is in,
Hmm.
yeah, and sort of, but accountability, not just to ourselves, but to one another in community. And I think
Right.
that's where I see your message earlier about bartering coming into play as well. It's really interesting. I put on a summit, my only summit to date in 2020, called Have Courage. And it was
Mm.
very well intentioned, very white, very before I understood how systems operated, in
Yeah.
complete vulnerability and openness. But
Hmm.
even back then, one of the guests I remember, Trina, shared very clearly their message in 2020 that they said, quote, "I believe we're going back to a system of bartering." So it's very interesting that in different contexts, different people are really seeing not only the idea, but the necessity. If Mother Earth is going to allow us to stay here, and I
Hmm.
emphasize that point because it's been a really lovely insight for me that Mother Earth will still be here, right, people? Don't worry about trying to save her. She'll be totally fine. She'll kick our butt and chuck us off the planet. So don't worry about saving the planet. Worry about, do we want to save ourselves? And it's
Yes.
just,
And there are a lot of activists and environmentalists that would scream at you for making that statement. But I agree. You know, she has always recycled herself to be where she needs to be to create, and the rest of us just kind of disappear. You know what I mean? And then, or populations are taken down to a space where she can regenerate. And you saw what COVID did for the planet. That alone, and it's just I believe that the higher source, or how the polyverse, or the that Shahana would say, is polyverse. No, that's not what she say. Multiverse, right? Same difference. Same means same thing. Is constantly correcting course for us, just like when bad things happen in our lives, we immediately think that's bad because it took you out of a certain mind and need for control into a place of, oh, I don't have control. And when that happens for me, I always say the universe always aligns in my favor. And so sometimes we just need to, I think we need to step back and let go of the will and sit and let things come to us. And I think that the things that are happening in the planet are her way to slap us around and say, will you please get out of my way so I can do my job? Let me live, let me breathe, let me close up these crevices, let me open up other ones, let me, you know, and I'm sorry that you're getting in the way, but you're in the way and you don't know what you're doing. So I've been here a lot longer than you. You live on me, not the other way around. Let me be. And imagine if we could do that for other people.
it's so beautiful, Trina, because again, it doesn't negate the importance of a lot of the good work, right, around, yes, reducing waste, circular economy,
Mm-hmm.
all very well intentioned, good stuff to do. We're not saying don't do that. What we're saying
Mm-hmm.
is who and what is being centered. Is it life?
Mm-hmm.
Is it the communities most harmed? Or are we actually just doing same old with a different badge? And I think this is the opportunity, right? Like,
Right.
Beyond Hegemony is, we're genuinely thinking, right, who's being most harmed? How do we decenter ourselves in the West? How do we design systems that are actually just, equitable, and based on
Yes.
bartering, not competition? Like, we're really speaking a lot of possibility, in this conversation. Really,
Right.
right?
Right. It
No
is.
judgment. There's no judgment. It's all
There's
possibility.
Not at all, because I feel like there's a need for people who are stewards to different aspects of our existence. There are people who need to steward the earth in order to, but they need to work in collaboration with the people who steward the um, uh, the air. You know, I mean, I guess you could combine that. Just even you, okay, you're in an extractive arena, and you extract for different industries, right?
Mm-hmm.
So when what could happen in a beyond hegemonic, post hegemonic world is that, all right, this is what we estimate is the total amount until we get everybody off of this drug, because we're going to be changing the agricultural aspects, and we're going to stop using pesticide, and we're going to stop doing certain things that we know are harming humanity. Okay, because that's goal number one. What does that look like? And so when we start taking away the causes, we can also kind of gauge what's necessary. But right now, everything is, purposefully done in a way to make us sick, to fuel one other industry, to fuel another industry, to fuel another industry. And so we're living in this kind of toxic loop of capitalism that doesn't really cure anything or solve any problems. It just keeps the machine going. So throw a wrench in the machine and see what's vital until the machine gets rebuilt in a particular way. Okay, so we have to look at foundation, you know. So the person that says, okay, well, I need this amount because I have this many people, so we're going to offset this. You know where I'm going with this.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I'm trying to. It's just all coming downloading to me right now, but I have a very clear vision of how we can go about creating a bartering system that is less extractive and less toxic. And you know there are tons of things, and I know I speak some of the wealthiest people I know get their healing from consuming less.
That feels like a really powerful place to start to wrap up, Trina.
Yeah, sounds
I
good.
think, I think, but I would love to invite maybe just a final wrap up reflection from us both. I just want to say thank you, honestly, because the generosity of your spirit and your insights is incredible. Same for Sahana. And again, really looking forward to other people joining us. From my side, I have to say, this is a healing space. I literally came out of an incredibly degenerative, toxic conversation, seeing the humanity, understanding how it all works, but it
Mm-hmm.
still hits you in the body because it's
Mm-hmm.
particularly when you're becoming more aware, more systemically aware, and you know what is possible to
Mm-hmm.
be going into that for the first time, probably, Trina,
Mm-hmm.
felt as if I was literally downing a barrel of gasoline directly into my body for 15 minutes. That's probably the best
Wow.
method because it was that there was zero nutrition, there was zero generative energy, there was nothing in the exchange that was nourishing, and it's
Yeah.
really made me sit in like, wow, yes, extractive industry, but how extractive to our soul and our spirit is every interaction like that, like death by a
Mm-hmm.
thousand cuts from the inside out. So I'm taking
Mm-hmm.
that reflection out with me that beyond hegemony, as we've just explored today, really is a place of connectedness, of exploration, of understanding, of empathy, of bold reimagining. And we can all
Mm-hmm.
do that without earning a crust as much as we need to in the current system. Everything we've discussed today starts with us, right? You don't need a
Yep.
training course, you don't need a
Yes.
certification.
Yes.
So over to you to wrap up.
Yes, and thank you for feeling brave enough to share that situation, because there are powers out there that are constantly peeking through the blinders and causing chaos where there should be peace. And so, being brave is really something that when I think of the Palestinian people who explain to us these truths and the things that um, Israel had been doing to them, and how we see is happening to us in the United States and globally. And the reason why I bring that up is because I truly believe until they're free, Congo is free, none of us will be. We have a collective obligation and responsibility to vibrate differently, vibrate higher. So even if you feel powerless, like, what can I do? You can heal yourself. That's what you can do. That's what you can do. You focus on taking accountability for your choices, for the things that you've done to harm others, to go and have those hard conversations to your children who you harmed, who you had no education, that's what you were doing. You were just going with the status quo. Now you feel differently. Have that conversation so that we can have those tendrils of healing go out to everyone else, because we're one huge consciousness having an experience together. So that's my last piece.
Yet again, you can't see it on the podcast, but this is a mic being dropped.
I
Thank you,
promise I'll
Trina.
put the podcast up sooner if I can. I'm juggling. So, yes, and thank you everybody who has come here to listen to Garry and I share our insights on Beyond Hegemony. There are things that you can do. So I really encourage you to do it. If you're interested in coming on and having a discussion, reach out to me, Garry or Sahana. This will be a replay, obviously, but I really appreciate those two people who have been watching us. Thank you. And please share this. Please share these explorations as much as you can, because the more you share, the more people kind of get in like mind, or, um, you know, energy. It's all about energy. And I think Garry and I really try our best to put out a loving, positive, generative, and healing energy to everyone who watches this podcast. So that's my intention. Okay.
Thanks, everyone. Thanks, Trina. Take care. Bye.
Bye.